Is it afternoon where you're at?
Yeah, here, yeah, it's
Yeah.
two.
Nice. Nice. I recorded a podcast last night. I was up until probably about 1 a.m. doing the editing and then uploading. It's actually still uploading to YouTube. It's already uploaded everywhere else, but it's still uploading to YouTube. So I've only slept like 2.5 hours. So if I seem a little if I seem a little tired, that's why. Don't worry about it. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. Have you did you get a chance to look at any have you looked at any of the episodes or anything of my
Um, I,
podcast?
I haven't seen any of the episodes, but I looked through like the people you interviewed and the topics.
Yeah, so you are the guy I interviewed yesterday was the first non-military person I've had on. He was a police officer up in Northern California and stuff like that. And so the show is normally military or something like that. Generally, I do military, and then I was kind of looking at that and like first responders. But I don't want to necessarily be pigeonholed into stuff like that. Like I want to be able to have whoever I want to come on, come on. So like obviously you're in a unique situation. For those that don't know, that are just now checking this out, me and you were cousins. We grew up in Indiana. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of tell everybody where you're from, and maybe a little bit about your background. We'll do a little bit about your background and stuff, and then we'll talk about how you ended up in Italy, and then kind of what's going on over there and stuff like that. So, take it away, Vanessa, about where you're from.
Well, I was born in Indiana, in Lafayette, and after I graduated high school, I moved to Indianapolis for a little bit, and then moved to Chicago. So I spent most of my adult life in Chicago, New York, and Miami. Um, I worked in the hospitality industry for almost 19 years. So that's what gave me the opportunity to travel and kind of work in the big cities.
Yeah. Now, when you say you work in the hospitality industry, was it mostly bars and restaurants, or was there more to it? And like, what kind of specifically did you do within that industry?
Yeah, it was bars and restaurants. I mean, I originally started off, my first job was Pizza King. So I started off taking orders and um, handing out pizza on a train. But then I kind of moved up the ladder. I started doing more serving and then bartending, and then eventually took on the role more of like beverage directing, management, things like that. I would say about 8 years into working in the industry, I got into mixology by accident actually, but it just really it changed my career. I had always loved cooking, and this was an opportunity for me to be able to basically cook behind a bar, and it was
Mm.
just a whole new world. So that's when my career in the industry really took off, and that's when I really my passion it gave me some of the best opportunities to be able to work with amazing people, and that's really when I was able to move and back and forth throughout those cities, Miami and New York. I worked with amazing people, and just that's when I was doing more beverage directing and managing and stuff like that. So
Hmm. Now, you were born in Lafayette, Indiana, but what was the name of the town that you lived in?
Stockwell.
Stockwell.
Um,
That's what it was. I
yeah,
completely actually forgot the actual name of it.
I'm not even sure. I mean, it may be now, but I'm not even sure like the name is on the map. It is so small. So that's why I usually just say I was born in Lafayette. I mean, I was born in Lafayette, but
Yeah.
I did live in a very small town called Stockwell. It was about 15 minutes outside the city. So for us, Lafayette was going to town.
Yeah, that's the so I always remember I went to boot camp, and this dude, one of the Marines that was there doing the receiving, he wasn't a drill instructor, but he's like you're some cornbread motherfucker, huh? And I'm like, what? Like, no. He's like, you live on a farm? And I'm like, no, I live in town. He's like, if you say you live in town, that means you're from the country, bro. And I'm like, okay, I get that. I see that. And Stockwell is like a literally like a one stop sign or like two stop sign town, right? It's not. There's not even a stoplight.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't live on a farm,
No.
so didn't have animals. So, but in front of my house was a cornfield, and but there was no. I mean, we were a little town. I mean, so there were no farms. Those were kind of spread out. But yeah, no, we had one store named Hackey's. Had a bell on the door when you opened it, and one little register. And we had a lumber yard that was kind of like it had like an area where you could rent VHSs. That's how old I am.
Hell yeah.
VHSs. Uh, and so it was kind of like a two-in-one. And that's it. If we wanted pizza or restaurant food, we had to go to the next town over, which was Clarksville, I think. Clarks Hill.
Clarks Hill.
Yeah.
God.
But I mean, yeah, we had a bank and a church. So it
I didn't know you
wasn't.
guys had a bank out there. Big city life.
Oh.
So isn't it weird growing up in like a small town like that? I mean, you obviously went to school at McCutcheon High School, which I think my class had like 200 and something people. I'm sure yours is probably around the same, right? Like 250 or something like that. So it wasn't like a small high school, but it wasn't huge either.
Yeah.
But growing up in such like a small town and like a rural area, and then ending up in Miami and New York and Chicago, do you think I like being from, like, I grew up in Tennessee as well, so I like being from like the South and being from the country in Indiana. I think it gives me more of appreciation of everything, like when I'm out here in California, because for those that don't know, I live in San Diego, so I like Indiana. I do not like Indiana weather and that kind of like lifestyle, because it's a hard lifestyle on people. It's like harder people, they're just dealing with a harsher reality of life, because of the weather, and like usually it's more blue collar style work and harder work and stuff like that. So I think it's good coming from a small town like that and then moving on to like a bigger city. I think it gives you a better appreciation. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but
I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't think it's for everybody. My mom has grown up in a small town, loves a small town, and hates the city.
hmm.
But for me, um, of course, when I was younger, I always, oh, I hate it here, but whatever. But really looking back, I'm so thankful to have that experience of living in the country. My dad taught me how to shoot a gun and fish, and we used to, as a family, go camping all the time. So, I mean, I can't say enough how much I appreciate having that like base of, I guess survival skills. I don't know how to say it right, but just that small town life when you're young, when you're a kid, I think is great to play outside, hide and go seek in the dark. Like just to be free as a kid and not have to really have the worries of living in a big city. But I was really excited to, when I first moved to Chicago, it was like I was a kid in a candy store. I mean, to be able to see so much culture was a bit of a shock at first because in Lafayette, like you said, I mean, it's a small city, and it is a college town. But when you live there, you don't really experience that so much.
Hmm.
So you don't see a lot of diversity in culture. And so moving to Chicago and trying sushi for the first time and Ethiopian food and just, I don't know, just having all these new experiences at my
Hmm.
fingertips were like, it was amazing for me. And it showed me a new world. And, I'm very proud, that I don't know how to say it, but I guess it's really shaped me because now I have that small town, grow up in the country when you're a kid,
Hmm.
and then city girl as an adult. So I've kind of been able to experience the best of both worlds, and it's pretty cool. For
For sure.
me, it was the
Yeah, for sure. I think I've talked about it like way on the earlier episodes of this podcast before, but I remember going to McCutcheon, and you're right, like the diversity there is none. I think there was like two black kids and like two Mexican kids maybe, and then like almost the entire school, of like 1,000 people. Everybody else was just white kids. So it was definitely I told one of the college students out here that I was like, yeah, back home it's basically all white kids and stuff like that, and out here it's like half Mexican kids and then like half, black and white kids split up. And depending on what neighborhood and what area you're in, it could be different, but the diversity out here is way higher, obviously. Um, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it was there and I just don't remember it, but I don't ever really ever remember being anybody like blatantly racist or anything about it. I mean, I'm sure there were, but it's just one of those things. I guess you don't really think about it until you're away from that, that environment. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah, yeah. I never thought about it. I mean, you're right. We had very little diversity, but the people that we had that yeah, they were just other friends. Like I never really noticed it all that much. I mean, there was bullying just like for everyone in high school, but um, yeah, you're right. It wasn't until I moved to the bigger cities where, I mean, I think you see it when you're in the bigger cities, but you also see a community. And so I think if you're more aware of it when you move to bigger cities, Chicago is a very diverse city, whereas in living in Miami was crazy. It was a complete flip because I was the minority in Miami.
mhm.
I remember like when I first moved there, I didn't really know any Spanish, and it was really sometimes I'd try to go get my cortadito, and like the ladies would just blatantly ignore me because I couldn't order it in Spanish, and
Oh,
that
really?
whole culture. Oh yeah, like it's a beautiful culture, and I was so happy to be there. But I definitely learned Spanish really quick because they put you in your place. This is our city, So I don't blame them though. Like I love their coffee, their food, and I will learn Spanish for it.
Yeah, I mean that's a Cuban run city basically. That's a based on that lifestyle. That's a very proud like background of people. Like the Cuban people are very proud people, even though I think that comes from
Yeah.
people that have lived oppressed and escaped that. That's probably part of it. I've actually never been to Miami. Everyone talks about Miami is just like crazy all the time. Like it's like L.A. but like no. Go ahead. You don't think it's like
Well,
that?
I mean, I've never been to LA. I've had a few friends move to LA and then move right back and say it's not for them because I think I've heard stereotypes, but I've never been to LA, so I can't compare. But you know, I think the thing is I even thought that before I moved to Miami. I thought, wow, it's going to be partying all the time. Am I going to be able to handle this? But no, I mean, the thing is you have your spring breakers, you have your bachelorette parties, if you have those group of people that come down and they go to the clubs. But
Mm-hmm.
when you live there, it's just like any other city. It's
Yeah.
just nice weather all the time. I mean, we have our own neighborhood bars. We have, you go to the bodega to get like your cheap, your $6 for chicken, rice, and beans that could last you a week. When you live there, you know the spots. Um, but and you also see more culture, and that's the thing is like if you don't know Miami and you go there to party, you're going to spend $18-20 on a drink. You're going to go to the clubs. You're only going to go to the places that are like party Miami. But when you're there, there's so much more. There's a beautiful, like you said, Cuban, Colombian, Haitian, a lot of mom and pop restaurants and things like that. And those are affordable places that the locals go to. And it's really just knowing the city because you can go anywhere. You can go to New York and party it up and
Mm-hmm.
go to you know what I mean? So Miami definitely, I mean, it's definitely evolved. I'm sure in like the late 90s and early 2000s, it was all clubs and partying. But I think with I think so many people have moved down there from all over the country. So it creates more of a more grounded, more, not so commercialized, not so clubby city.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice mix now of people from, normally it's the west coast of Florida that's more your people from Indiana, more your Midwestern.
Yeah.
When you're on the west coast, I'm sorry, the east coast, that's more your New Yorkers that come down. So you get this kind of melting pot in Miami of like really strong South American influence, and then you get your New Yorkers, and then a lot of Europeans.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes Miami so unique is it's because it's majority European and South American. You know, the lifestyle is very different. You know, it's very leisurely. You
Hmm.
know, out lunches, stuff like that. You know, very no one's in a hurry.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I like how a lot of major cities are kind of like what you're describing. You know, like San Diego's same way. You have your little local groceries that you can walk over to, or the little stores and stuff. And that's the good thing about living in the city. You know, you have like I can walk over here and grab a burrito from the burrito stand. It's like the same people every time I see them. They know me. Like, that's the cool part about living in the city for sure. I wish though I could have a yard. That would be that would be super awesome. But there's not a lot of yardage out here in San Diego unless you're willing to pay for it, And I'm not there yet. I was just talking to my buddy yesterday. I was like, man, I want to move inland to get a yard, but if you move inland out here, you're basically going into the desert, and then you got to deal with like super dry heat summers, and it's just like, because living in a house down by the beach is going to cost a couple $1,000s a month. For rent it's just outrageous. It's one of the most expensive places out to live. Luckily, I'm going to school and stuff, so I get BAH and everything. I get housing allowance for going to school from the military and stuff like that. But and then my income from the website and this and everything all comes together to make it all work out. But it's definitely not an affordable city for a lot of people. Which a lot of cities are like that. Now, so you said you've been to like to Chicago and you've been to Miami and you've been to New York City. I've never been to New York City or Miami. Out of the three, which one would you most rather like live in?
Great question. Well, I feel like I'm in a whole new life now. I'm a mom and I'm married, and um, I feel like before my husband and I had Ryan, we could have easily lived in New York. I really love New York. It's an amazing city, and I'm the same. I love being able just to walk down the street to the bodega and get something, and them, they know you. I love public transportation. I love just being able to. I love the city life, and I think I would choose as a single person, or just if it was just me and my husband. I think I'd probably choose New York. However, in reality, as a parent, I would probably say if I had to choose between the three, I would choose Miami because you're right. I mean, I do miss having a yard, and I miss that outdoor life. And I think in Miami, yeah, I would live off the beach this time, whereas before I lived on the beach. But it would give me the opportunity to have a house with a yard, and in the way of life there, I really like. So I think as a parent, Miami. As a single person or as married with my husband, it would either be New York or Miami.
Yeah. And now your husband's Italian, and which is
Mhm.
obviously how you ended up in Italy. You guys met in the food industry, or the what do you say? What would you call it? The service industry? Is that how you
Hospitality.
hospitality
You could
industry?
say service industry, but
I'm not
I mean,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't want
I
to.
think
I
general
don't want to say the
term
wrong thing.
hospitality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys met down there. What did he do, or what does he do in the industry? Do you guys do the same thing or something different?
Uh, Different a little bit. Yeah, we met in Miami. His best friend was managing a restaurant with me,
Hmm.
and he came in to visit him, and that's how we met. He does a lot of like serving and management when it comes to your like fine dining. He's an amazing book of knowledge when it comes to wine and all the all that goes into fine dining. Whereas I am more on the bar beverage side of things.
Hmm.
I mean, I love food. I've worked in all types of restaurants, but my focus when I was in America was the beverage side of things. So um, we work in the same industry, but kind of different aspects of it a little bit.
Okay.
Um, but that's how we met, and then I continued to stay here a year after we met, and he moved back to Milan, and then I followed a year later. So
Yeah, no, that's
I,
pretty awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a lot of guys that are getting out of the military that listen to to the different episodes and stuff like that, and some guys that are out and they're just kind of trying to figure out what they want to do in life. Um, Before we talk about what's going on in Italy and stuff, what would you recommend to somebody that wants to get into like your industry? Like, what's the kind of steps that they should take to try to break into that? Is there like any kind of special training that would help them out, or is it kind of like you got to kind of know the right people and how do you break into the hospitality industry?
Well, I think the important thing to do is to realize that it's very you do have to have experience, but you can't just jump right into bartending or jump right into serving. What I would always recommend is go to a place where you love the food, you love the hospitality of the people that run the place, because they're like any industry, it can be pretty rough. There's it's not the type of industry that's going to it's not your 9 to 5. So you will be there all the time, and you will be these people will be your family. So I think it's really important to start, you know, go in and just be honest, because what we mostly look for is passion. And I'll hire someone usually that has zero experience but is passionate about work and being a part of our team than necessarily having a huge list of places they work. So I would recommend to them to just, go in and apply at maybe a local place that they love, and start off as maybe you might start off as like a runner, a food runner, bussing tables, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it gives you a good base to understand how the restaurant runs, and then quickly people will move into the serving position, and then after that bartending. It really, to be honest, to get into like mixology or to get into that kind of level of bartending and working in those nice like high-end cocktail bars, usually you need quite a few years of experience, and you usually need to know someone, just to be honest. But there are so many great restaurants that you can work in that to build that experience that will get you to that level, if that's where you want to go. Some people are not looking to be in that type of restaurant where they're making what people say, fancy cocktails. Some people just want to serve and be a server or a manager or bartender in a regular restaurant that's in their neighborhood, and that's cool too. So I think it's just, most importantly, is just, to work your way up,
Mm-hmm.
and understand the roles of the restaurant. And don't go to bartending school. If I could give anybody the best advice, don't go to bartending school. The best bartenders and the best way you're going to be a great bartender is to work your way up. And like I said, work in a place that supports you as an employee, and you learn by working there. And there are some great programs you can do, like Bar Smart. There are some great things you can do like online and classes that you can take, but do not go to bar school. That is such a waste of time and money, and they do not teach you what you need to know, and it's kind of a shortcut, a not good one. I love the industry, and like I said, it's very time consuming, and it can definitely take over your life in many ways, but I'm very proud to have spent so many years in the industry, and I recommend it to anybody that is trying to get, if they're getting out of the army and they want to try a new, path. I think it's a great community to join.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So many people are in the military, and so many people have so many different backgrounds that I try to expose a lot of people, or I try to expose people to a lot of different options through the show, because I think a lot of people that get in the military they go in the military and they either come out and go back home and do whatever it was they were doing before they came in, or a lot of guys come out and they think that the only thing that they can do is go into like try to get into a management position at some kind of corporation or something like that. And I'm like, dude, there's so many other options out there. So obviously that's why I wanted to kind of discuss, your industry a little bit. That way they kind of see that, because I know there's people that want to be bartenders. I mean, Marines are known drinkers out there. That's all these dudes do when we go to, we go to these different port calls in like Hong Kong and Singapore and everything like that. And they hit all the bars, and partying in any city is almost the same. It's just, so I don't know. They're already kind of used to it. Some guys will want to get into that. Go ahead.
Well, and it's good. I mean, but one cool thing that they have that's leverage is that that I see now, because I had never traveled before I moved here, and now that I live here in Europe and I've been to different countries, man, I wish I could go back in time and redo my years in the industry, because I see things in a different way. So these friends of yours are just people that have traveled around the world for whatever reason and now are back and want to, think about getting into the hospitality industry. I think that alone is some experience, because you've seen what bars and restaurants are like all over the world, and not just that, but just culture. You're more aware of culture. Yeah. And I think that always gives you an up, because especially if you're living in a big city and you're working in a restaurant where you have a lot of tourists, I think you can be even better at your job because you'll understand them. Whereas me, I'm like, why are they doing this? Or why won't they do that? And I don't understand, and I would always be so frustrated sometimes. And I would think that what their requests were so strange or whatever, and it would frustrate me. But now that I live here and I've seen so many different cultures and customs, I'm like, okay, it all makes sense now. And I think I would be better at my job.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now.
Oh, yeah. So, well, that's the way it works, right? That's how experience is.
Yeah. So that's what they've been traveling all over the world for, in the Army or for whatever reason. And then they come back to America. They want to get in the hospitality industry. Go for it, because we'll kick ass at it.
Yeah, might as well, right? It's I don't know. The hospitality industry doesn't seem like a bad deal. Like, it seems like good. Like, I know people that are in it still that like enjoy it. There's like a weird culture within it too. There's like this subculture of like, and you see people within the industry that talk to each other. It's like, I don't know. It's just a weird group of people when you're around. Like, I guess it's like that with any industry when you're around a group of people that are all from one industry. But it's kind of funny seeing that. But yeah, so to Italy, you moved to Italy, and what I was going to say before is, I always try to tell people, I try to get the point across as much as I can that people need to get out and travel more. Like, going out and seeing the world, not even just seeing the world, but even seeing their own country they live in. Because the United States, you have 50 states here. The United States is more like Europe than people realize. Like, not every state is different. They're almost like their own little different countries. New Mexico is different than Illinois. You know what I'm saying? Washington State is different than Florida. And people don't get out and see those regional cultures enough, or, go into other countries and see these other, cultures and stuff around the world. And I feel like that's something that I really feel bad for people that haven't had the opportunity to, like, get out and see some of the stuff that you see in the history books, or you see on TV. You're like, man, I'm here. I'm looking at this. Like, I can't believe I'm seeing this for real, I remember seeing
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I remember seeing like the Petronas Towers in Malaysia. And, they were the world's tallest building for a little while. And it was like, I think it was on either James Bond or one of those spy shows that I remember that being on the movie. And then I'm in Malaysia and I'm looking at it like, oh shit, this is this tower I remember watching on the movie when I was a kid. So that was always cool. But what were you going to say though?
I was going to say, yeah, I've always dreamed of traveling, but just could really never afford it. And then now that I'm able to live here, and now that living over here, it's so much easier, and it's easier and it's more affordable to travel. So I've been able to do so. And I would definitely say man, it's worth it. And if I could go back in time, I would have saved every penny to do it. But also, I think the key is when you do travel, whether it's within the United States or whether it's to Europe or South America or wherever, is allow yourself to enjoy that area. I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes people travel and they'll come here and they still end up eating at McDonald's. And it's
Yeah.
like, if you come to Italy and you're not eating our food, then shame on you because it's amazing. And, it's, anywhere, anytime I travel to anywhere, I always try to really find out exactly, what the city's about, what the country's about, and try and sing,
Yeah, you
you
definitely
know?
got to try. You definitely got to try local, local food. And going to Italy, I mean, I'll be honest. I ate at McDonald's when I was in Hong Kong, but that's just because there's some weird food in Hong Kong, and sometimes you don't know what if you're like a couple times I was by myself walking around, and I'm like, I don't know what this sign says, like what's in this food, so I'm gonna go with what I know. And there's a McDonald's right there. Um, I mean, we ate a bunch of stuff in Hong Kong, but I remember my buddies were eating duck tongue out of a bowl. There's like a bowl full of duck tongues that they were served, and all of them started eating it, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't think it would be freezing cold," And then they're like chewing on it, and then they hit like a bone, and they're like, you see them over there gnawing on the bone. This little like Chinese lady comes over, is like, "No, no, you're not supposed to eat the bone," and everyone's like, "What?" It's just. I was not about the duck tongue. I did not try that though. I went to the McDonald's instead. So, what's the what do you think's the weirdest food you've encountered in your travels?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm pretty adventurous. I don't, strangely enough, because my family is very picky eaters. They are very picky eaters. But I'm actually, oh my goodness, what's the strangest thing I've eaten? Oh my goodness, I don't know. But I'm pretty down to try. Like I said, when I go to a city, I try whatever is the local thing. I try, but I haven't been to Asia, um,
It's fun.
or or I mean, I guess I've had chicken feet, I've had cow's tongue, I've had pretty much every liver you can think of cooked in many
Oh,
different ways. I really enjoy liver.
nah,
Um,
I'm
you're
not about
shaking your
that
head.
life.
I'm sure I've had something more strange. To me, those things are pretty common, I
Yeah,
guess. But I mean, they're not common, but I don't think it's the grossest thing. But I've never had like bugs on a stick or
mm.
uh, some of the things you might see in a market throughout different areas in China and stuff like that. I haven't, but not to say that I wouldn't maybe try some of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you could have always had. I think they do bugs over at Purdue when they do the what do they do? The cricket spitting contest and stuff like that. They do that big bug festival every year. Do you know what I'm talking about? You have no
No, but
idea
I've
what I'm
had
talking about. They
no.
have.
I haven't lived there for so long. I don't think they had that when we were young, did they?
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I don't even know if they still do it. That's what I remember it from is when I was in like school and stuff. They have like some kind of bug festival where they'd have all the and people would be eating like mealworms and like crickets and all this stuff. Like I never went and did that, but it was I always remember it being on the news and stuff. But yeah, I've never really eaten too many bugs either. That not really my jam. Not something. Yeah, I don't know. I've watched a
I've
guy. What's
chocolate
that?
covered cricket before. I've had a chocolate covered cricket before.
Yeah, what was that like? Crunchy.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
put anything in chocolate and it's pretty masked. So,
Well, weird food is what has gotten us to where we're at today because of the this is all, obviously they think they've identified patient zero for COVID-19, which is some like elderly shrimp sales lady in the wet markets in China. I think she was set up next to where they were selling the bats, and they were doing that, and she somehow contracted it through the air or something like that from the bats that they were selling, which is when I heard about that. I've heard the term wet markets before, but I guess I never really understood what it was. And I didn't know that they sold like bats and dogs and cats and like all this weird stuff like fresh, like they'll kill it right there and stuff too. And I also didn't know that it's mainly that weird stuff is mainly eaten by the rich people. Someone was telling me that. They use it as like a status symbol. Like, oh, I can eat, I'm so rich I eat bats, like weird stuff like that. And that's something, that's why the markets in Wuhan haven't closed. That's why the wet markets haven't closed, is because there's pressure from like the rich people, I guess, to keep them open because they enjoy eating these weird things. And this is I think that's where bird flu originated as well. I may be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure at least one other disease has been known to come out of that wet market and stuff like that. So obviously that happened. That came out in December. December is when China first realized, well, it sounds like now, I think they knew about it in November. They didn't tell anybody. December is when the world started hearing about it, but China and the World Health Organization in December said that it wasn't transferable from person to person. And then obviously time went on. We saw that wasn't true. Beginning of January, I think, is when other countries really started to see other cases start to pop up, but it was like ones and twos. It wasn't anything crazy, right? It was just the beginning. And a lot of people didn't really take it seriously. Our country, other countries, all over the world. I don't think they understood which, I mean, it's hard to blame them. Like, it's like, how could you understand that this pandemic is about to come in and cause a, immediate like 20% unemployment and shut down an entire country's like, infrastructure, like every business is closes and stuff like that. So like I said, January, I'd say for the timeline, January is when cases started popping up. February, it started getting a little bit worse, but even newspapers here in the U.S. were saying that, okay, hey, it's looking like there's a disease out there, but the focus wasn't really on it. And Trump closed the borders to China, which initially people were saying he was a racist and stuff for doing that. Unfortunately, I don't think he did enough after he closed the borders. I think he closed the borders, which is the right call. I don't think he did enough in that time frame. I don't think they realized the impact that the pandemic was going to cause, and they didn't use that gap that they had, or that time that they had built for themselves to, build up our store of like testing and stuff like that. And that's been the U.S.'s biggest problem, is the testing capabilities. But like I said, even people from both parties in the U.S. of both political spectrums were saying that this wasn't a big deal. I mean, up to the point where, like, even at the end of February, Nancy Pelosi, that's when she went to Chinatown in San Francisco. It was like, hey, keep coming to Chinatown and eat. I'm coming here for lunch. It's safe. Don't be racist. This isn't a Chinese virus. And, Donald Trump's a racist for shutting the border. And obviously that turned out to, again, she was wrong. And it's just all kind of spiraled out of control here in the U.S. And now we are entering, they said it 2 days ago, we're entering, basically the next 2 weeks is going to be really, really bad in the U.S. There's going to be a lot of deaths. I think yesterday there was like 400 or 500 deaths in New York City alone. They're the epicenter. They're the epicenter of the world right now. They have all the cases. Not all of them, but they have tens of thousands of cases in New York City right now. And it's gotten pretty bad there. So that's kind of why, or that is exactly why I wanted you to come on the show, because you're in Milan, which is in the northern part of Italy. And Milan is one of the hardest hit parts in Italy, because it's Milan and Lombardy, right, are both the two like really bad ones. And I'd like you to kind of explain why Italy is having like such a hard time with the pandemic, and then if you know why northern Italy is having a harder time than southern Italy, from what I've been told. Like southern Italy has way less cases than northern Italy. So if you kind of want to get into maybe the timeline when Italy started seeing cases, and then how that's kind of affected your day-to-day life, and kind of how it's built up since then.
Well, I think, Milan first of all, when it first started to hit us, we didn't take it so seriously either. I think first of all, we were a bit in shock that it was hitting us at all. It seems like it just jumped from China to us, and it's like, wait, but what happened to all these other countries in between? You know, and
Yeah.
we didn't take it seriously either. It was a very at first it was kind of a slow process where it was announced, and then like within the week of it being announced, you know, same as everywhere, we panicked. Everything was off the shelves in the supermarket. But I think that our leaders here did the best they could as far as trying to contain that panic,
Mm-hmm.
because when you have so many people panicking, I think what it was is we were very divided. Some people panicked, went and bought everything off the shelves, not in the way that I've seen a lot in America. It wasn't like everybody was buying all the toilet paper and hoarding it. It was just that, like, whereas they may have only bought a half a cart of food, now they were going and buying 2 carts of food as if it was an apocalypse and they were going to never be able to come back to the grocery store. So it was more like that. But I think we had like half the city doing that and half the city that were like, oh, this is nothing, it'll blow over. Um, and that lasted about a week, but then our officials were like, no, like we will restock. It is no, do not worry. And so then that panic kind of went away. Um, for for us as a city, I think that I think the reason why Milan was hit so hard was because, obviously we have so many airports. We have 3 airports, and everybody flies into Milan or Rome. But I think also we are the big city. So as whereas the South is more smaller towns, we are the big city. And I think as we now know this virus, I mean, it travels so quickly. And I think also one thing that makes it so bad is that you could actually have the virus and not even know it and be passing it around to everyone. So you could feel fine and give
Mm-hmm.
it to 3 other people, and I think that's why it passed it. That's why it just went from like one person. I remember distinctly. I don't remember the date, but I remember like on a Friday we had 12 cases. On Saturday we had 25, and then on Sunday there was like 60. So it was like in 3 days we went from like 12 to 60, and then from there it just blew up. But like everywhere, I remember like slowly people stopped riding the bus, people stopped riding the train. The people that were getting on were covering their faces. And even at that point, some of us were still like, it's not that big of a deal. Just don't sneeze and touch something. We'll be fine. So I think about 2 weeks in is when it really hit. And we did a gradual lockdown here. So when it first hit, people, nobody lost their jobs. It was like cafes had to close at 6 o'clock, bars had to close at 6, but restaurants could stay open. Then it went to, okay, restaurants, you have to close at 6 o'clock and your tables have to be a certain amount apart. And then it went, well, and first the schools were all schools were out.
Mm-hmm.
So all schools first. So it was a gradual thing for us, but when the restaurants closed, that's when it became serious. And
Mm-hmm.
it was scary. But that's when the strict lockdown started, where we could not leave our houses. If you were outside, you would get fined. And I think the reason why, even with that lockdown, like I said, we had 2 weeks of a casual lockdown. People were still going to work that probably didn't need to go to work, and people also, the kids looked at it as a time to hang out with their friends. They're like, no school, let's get together.
Mm-hmm.
The small kids were having play dates, and I think we just weren't taking it as seriously as we should have. And because of this, it was spread so quickly. Also, you have to think about the fact that Italy is a lot of elderly. And also, so, and I think because I don't want to. I mean, we have good health care, and I've only lived here for 3 years, but I've had a baby here. I have health issues, and I've never had any problems with the hospital. So I don't like seeing things on the news from other countries that think that our healthcare people aren't doing everything that they can. I
Mm-hmm.
get people texting me all the time, like, "Is this true about your hospitals?" Like, they're doing the best that they can. This hit us so fast, and we didn't take it seriously, and we're paying for it now. I mean, this lockdown was really hard on us, but I think that what I try to do for myself, my sanity, and my family is just to stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I mean, you're able to go to the pharmacy, you are able to go to the grocery store. It may take you longer because, as you've seen on TV, you have to wait. There now are police officers or security at every place, but it's all our bread places, butchers, we call them tabaccerias, but it's basically where you buy cigarettes, where you buy, but basically it's a kind of a form of a gas station, but you don't get gas, but it's kind of where you go to buy those kind of things.
Yeah.
Those are still open. So, it is strange to see a city that's completely shut down, a city that's very similar to New York. It's the busiest city in Italy. Just to be completely barren is really strange. But we definitely are all taking it serious now, and everybody's staying inside. And although we're seeing it's slowly dropping our numbers, I do think that if we continue to stay like we are and stay inside and to not drop our guard, I think that hopefully we'll start to be able to go back to normal like China has gotten to do. So,
Well,
but
even China though. Well, let me hit a couple points. One, the people that are thinking that it's the healthcare system are the people that are ignorant to what is actually happening, because it's not the healthcare system itself, it's the capacity. It's a capacity issue.
yeah,
And honestly, like, how can you plan for this? How can you honestly have a hospital say, okay, I'm going to make 10,000 beds for the next pandemic, and then maintain that for a year or for a decade when none of those beds ever get filled? Like, how can you expect it's like, I understand we need more. We need better capacity. Obviously, we're going to need better capacity going forward. But at the same time, you got to weigh that with like the reality of someone's got to maintain these facilities, and someone has to because if we build a 10,000 bed hospital and all these ventilators, all this equipment, all that equipment's going to be sitting there and just be going bad until the pandemic happens, the next one happens, and then when that happens, and it's going to be too late. So it's not a healthcare quality issue. It's just a capacity thing. And it's just tough, man. Not being in Italy and hearing the news. Like, what's a good news source? Like, what's good European news? Are there any good English outlets that are European focused that you would recommend to people that want to like hear more what's going on, but don't want to hear it from like CNN or Fox or something in the U.S. side?
well, we are able to see the news that's happening in America, and we see all the president's speeches. We don't just see the Democratic or the Republican. We get to see everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I I assumed you could see ours too. Our people are on the news day and night just like yours are. So my mom said that was having a hard time finding coverage from us. So to be honest, I really don't know why you can't see our coverage.
We can. I just don't. I didn't know if like you could recommend a news outlet that you trust, because we're not familiar. And the other thing is too is that, I mean, no offense, but everyone's looking outside of America. Everyone looks at America. Everyone watches CNN all around the world, but no one watches, whatever the international news channel for Italy. No one in the U.S. is like, oh, I actually follow, because I took Italian, I actually follow a couple news agencies on my Twitter feed that are in Italian, just so I can like read it. I look at it and go, shit, I don't remember anything, but I have it there. But it's just not, I guess it's not as accessible because I don't know, it's not something, I mean, it'd be easy to find. I just didn't know if you knew something offhand.
I mean, I mean, I understand that completely. We're not a big country, and
Yeah.
normally we're not the epicenter of anything, except for maybe fashion certain times of the year. But no, unfortunately, I can't tell you of a specific one to go that you can trust. But what I can say, I get so many people that are mortified um, with what they do see that's happening here. And I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I'm not there, but I do know that I've heard things like, oh, we're just letting people die because people can't get to them. Listen, like you said, nobody prepares for a pandemic. Nobody has 10,000 beds sitting around. And, we got hit so hard, so fast that, and also when something like this happens during flu season, where some of the symptoms are very similar,
Mm-hmm.
you know, our poor hospitals got overran with people that maybe necessarily didn't need to be there. You have to look at the fact that the majority of these people, the majority of people that get it, have minor symptoms. Um, my husband, I mean, it was never verified, but we were on quarantine for 2 weeks because my husband had a high fever for 4 days. He lost his sense of taste. He lost his sense of smell. He
Mm.
basically we called the doctor. They, were in communication with him. They quarantined us. And, we never got to that point where we needed to go to the hospital, but there are so many people that immediately rush there, and it overfloods overwhelms the hospitals. And I think how the news has misinterpreted the situation is that there were peak times when there were people that may have sat there that weren't the severe cases, that didn't get 100% attention 24 hours a day because there were other more severe cases.
Yeah.
They have to when they have 1,000 people come through their doors in a day complaining of this virus, they have to be able to sort people in a
Yeah.
certain way. There's only so many hands that can, you know, I just think that during this time, I realize it's very stressful for everybody. Our whole lives have changed, and it's a very scary moment for all of us. But I do think that we have to really be appreciative to the people that risk their lives to do the best they can to save as many people as they can, and to bash them on the news and allow our newscast to be speaking negatively really bothers me, because I just think that's not what we need right now. Is to
Well,
you know
I'll tell you the vibe I've gotten here isn't that. And I mean, I watch the news. I'm a journalist, student, so I'm watching the news constantly. And it's not necessarily like that anyone's doing anything wrong. It's just they understand the capacity. It's just a capacity thing. And what's really freaking people out is when they see the videos of like the military trucks carrying the bodies to the morgue, or the crematorium to be cremated, because they've showed it a few times, a convoy of trucks in Italy taking bodies to the crematorium. And it's just like, geez, man, like that's crazy. And now in New York City, they have a bunch of mobile freezer truck morgues set up outside the hospitals. And people are seeing those and taking photos of that. And obviously people are seeing that and it's freaking them out. They're like, what the hell? And then, the news just said that FEMA just ordered 100,000 or requested 100,000 body bags from the Pentagon, from the military. And, that's the stuff that the news is telling people, that it sucks because it's the news, and that's how they get people to sit here and watch it all day, is by freaking you out, making you watch, making you want to know what's coming next. And what I don't like about the news is, one, they never tell you about how many people haven't died. Like, this many people have been cured. That number never comes up, and that's the mass majority. Mass majority. Just like you said, most of the people that get it don't even have. I think the statistics, like 85% of the people that get it don't even need to go to the hospital. It's just like you said, a couple days, like I don't feel well, and then I have to self quarantine. I actually have a buddy who's in New York City. He was messaging me on Instagram the other day and was saying that he got it. He got the coronavirus, and he's been in lockdown for 17 days. But he's a younger, healthy dude, and he didn't even go to the hospital. They told him not to even come in. because he wasn't, he wasn't having like crazy breathing problems or anything like that. And that's, the news is just they want to draw out the scare factor because they know it's going to, pull people in. And I wish they would really look at it when they ask questions of the president or like Dr. Birx or Dr. Fauci, the people that are in charge of like, that are around the president, like, and doing all the advising and stuff. I wish they would ask questions that in your mind you could say, does this help us or does it not? Like, is this information that people need or not? Like, am I going to ask the president a question to get you a gotcha moment on TV? Or am I asking a question that's going to help an actual person out there? Like, hey, small business loans, what's the best way someone can apply for that needs one? Why is that question not getting asked? Something like that rather than some stupid question. It's just, yeah, man, the news is just draws it out to be really, really bad. I mean, it is really bad. But I think the constant negativity and never saying anything positive or never telling the full story, I think that hurts people's ability to take it seriously as well. Because they're like, "What? All you're telling me all day is that this is dangerous and we should stay home." But I don't know anyone that's been sick. I don't know anybody. Why? So here, just so you know how it is here in San Diego, the lockdown or whatever you want to call it, restaurants are still open for drive-through or takeout. Like I can call and order takeout and go pick it up. Like Uber Eats still delivers. They all actually canceled their delivery fee so that people could get food for cheaper. You can still go to Starbucks and go through the drive-through. You can go to like a 7-Eleven. You can go to the grocery store. Best Buy, Best Buy is essential. They just now closed it from actually being able to go in. Like a couple days ago, I went to get a cord for this whole setup, and I guess you have to order online now. But before they were letting everyone go in and out of there. But they're talking about making it more strict in San Diego County, talking about ticketing people that are out. I think they're doing that in LA because LA is really bad. And I think I've said it on every podcast that we've talked about it, but I'm waiting on the homeless population of LA that numbers 70,000 people, for this to hit that population. And I think that's going to be very devastating. And I don't know what that's going to do to LA because the homeless, like I said, 70,000 people is just insane. That's like the size of Lafayette. Lafayette's just a little bit bigger than that. And that's just, so that's kind of what's going on here. And I don't know. The reactions of people, I'm kind of worried about what people are going to do as the death count keeps going up. I don't like how the news keeps going, oh, this many people have died. That's more people than died in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. This many people have died. That's as many as Vietnam. It's like, dude, what does that have to do with anything? Why does that matter? Why are you comparing it to a war anyway? Why wouldn't you compare it to another like disease? Like those two things don't even make sense. And all you're doing is fucking scaring people. Like how many people have not died? Tell me that. And the number's way higher than that because of the amount of people that have gotten the disease and have never been tested and they just got over it, So I don't know.
There are so many people that have it that won't be tested, so those numbers won't be included. And they do say that for the longest time we had the highest death rate, and it was so staggering, so shocking. And I think what I've read is that maybe our numbers were a bit off too, because you have to think. If you weren't having breathing problems, you weren't going to the hospital. So they're really calculating these numbers of deaths compared to the amount of people they know have the virus. But if you weren't in the hospital and you were quarantined at home, then you weren't included in that average. So yes, it has devastated us, but I don't think that, who's to say the numbers are accurate anywhere? My thing is that, and who knows how it's going to be for you guys, and I'm not there, but I do have, obviously family there that I love dearly, and some of them that have conditions and are in that range of the people that need to be protected. And it saddens me. To me, you guys are not on lockdown. I'm sorry, but a banker, a Best Buy worker, you are not essential. Who needs to go into a bank. You know, you could use the ATM if you need cash, but we are in a pandemic here. People are dying, and these numbers are only going to surge. And, you know, so you can get your food through a drive-through. Okay, so but that's still employees that are going into work making food that have the ability to pass it to each other. Then they go home and give it to their loved ones. You know, if everybody who's not really essential would just stay home, this would go away a lot faster. And it took us a while to realize that. And look where it got us. And I think that I'm not there in America, but I read. I have friends that live all over the country, and so every area is handling it a little bit different. And you know, I have friends that their kids still go to daycare, and I'm thinking to
No
myself,
way.
like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I had a guy, I had a friend debate whether he should go to work or not because he has a son at home and he didn't feel comfortable doing it. And he asked on Facebook, "What should I do?" And I applied for a job for an employer to put their employees in that situation. It just breaks my heart. Um, you know, I will say this, that you know, it is really important to stay positive. One thing I love about our country here, and you'll see it in Spain as well, is you know, people singing on the patio on their
That
balconies,
has been
and
on the news here. I have seen that on the news.
it's amazing. We have not been blessed enough to have the people that play the piano and the saxophone, because that was really dope. We don't get that. We get the old ladies banging on the pots and pans. But it is
Same
really
difference.
cool though yeah, it's cool to be able to lean out your window and see the community get together and you know, support our people that are, you know, our health care people, to support the people that are out there risking their lives to keep the city functioning. But for us, the only people that are working are, you know, I mean, we run a little bit differently than America. We don't have Walmarts and Targets. And so, like I said, we have our healthcare people, our sanitation people. And if you work at a tabacaria, or you bake bread, or you go to the butcher, because it's part of the
Hmm.
culture here is you go to a bread store for bread, you go to a meat store for meat. So those places stay open, but literally everything else is closed in supermarkets. Um, and so it's nice to see people rally together and hang off their balconies and show support and gratitude. And just, you know, a lot of people are hanging rainbow paintings of rainbows off the balcony. And, you know, whatever we can do to just stay positive, because you're right. The numbers of people that walk out of the hospital alive are not always shown. And the news always wants to cover the negative things more than the positive. And I think it's up to us as people in the world to stay positive and to you know, try to make the best of a worse situation. But what I will say, just to put in reality, and this is not being negative, it's just being realistic, is that this is the reality of what happens when people don't stay at home. You know, a friend of ours' mom passed away due to the virus. She was in the hospital for 12 days. And her family that she was with was obviously under quarantine. They can't leave the house. She was in the
Hmm.
hospital alone for 12 days. She passed away in the hospital and was one of those people carried off in the bag, you know, and no one was there for her to hold her hand. No one has, she cannot have a funeral. If you die from the virus, you're quarantined. You don't get a funeral. So this is the reality of what happens to your loved ones that get the virus in and pass away from it. You know, they're going to be in the hospital alone and they're going to die alone, and there's going to be no funeral. And that's shocking. And that is heartbreaking. And she was not old.
Hmm.
So the thing people keep saying, oh, it's for the old, you know, it's not. It's for everybody. It can get anybody. And I think that is reality. And
Hmm.
we can prevent this if we work together and stay home and stay inside, so that this can pass and we can get back to our lives and we can get back to our loved ones, you know?
Yeah.
So,
The positive news in California is that they said that it looks like the social distancing is working here, and it's starting to kind of bend the curve a little bit down, so that, you know, it's still going to be bad, but it's not going to be as overwhelming for the healthcare professionals that are, you know, going in and slaving away doing whatever it is they do. I don't even know what they're doing for people, hooking them up to ventilators. Other than hooking people up to ventilators and stuff, I'm not really sure what other symptoms are being treated and how they're being treated. So, oh man, I just can't imagine being in a hospital and dying like that, because it seems like you're just being choked to death. Like you're slowly being choked to death. I know they're monitoring people's oxygen levels, and they're telling people if they have like 90% oxygen. I saw something the other day where a doctor was saying, I think it was yesterday, a doctor was saying that if his patients came in and they were maintaining 90% oxygen, then he wasn't even treating them. He was sending them away, because even though they were lower than they should be, then there were people that were way worse off. And it's like, dude, sorry, you can't, there's other people. So yeah, I think bending the curve here is starting to work. The problem with the US is it's just so freaking big. It's so big, and Italy's tiny. It's not a very big country. We have 330 million people in this country, and some localities, I understand how some localities aren't on like a full lockdown. I kind of get it. Well, maybe not now, because now we're like I said, we're going into that 2 week of like where it's going to get kind of really bad, where all the cases are coming to fruition and stuff like that. But I see why the middle of the country is a little bit slower to react, because all the cases have been on the coast, and it just hasn't hit them yet. I don't know. And the thing is because the country is so big, I mean, you can't put the entire country on lockdown because how long is it going to take to go through an entire country, And I don't know. People don't like to hear it, but the financial argument is a real argument, like at what point do we open the economy back up and get people back to work? Because people are dying from this virus, but people are also going to die from not getting enough food, not getting enough whatever, they can't afford to live anymore, that's a reality as well. And then I've been hearing more about people are like, quarantine in their homes, and the depression setting in for a lot of people, and like they're afraid suicides are going to go up, and stuff like that. Or I'm sure it is. I'm sure, that statistic will come out at some point, but I don't know, man. It's all around just a mess.
Well, I think, I mean, I'm in no way, I wish this would never have happened, but I do think that it's happening. And I think now is a better time than 15, 20 years ago, because we can stay connected via Skype, via Facebook. And I think that really helps people, and supports people that are having, depression problems with this. Or, I mean, you have to look, I think some of the positive things to talk about, my daughter's really young. She's not going to remember this. She's 2. Yeah. But think about, when in a normal life, parents are busy at work, kids are busy with school and sports. And, so one positive thing about all this is that, what your kids will remember is that year, that time when mom and dad or whoever your parents are were at home with you, and you had dinners together and played games. So I think the positive side of this is from a kid's point of view, the family time and the time you get to spend, with your loved ones. And those that, you can try new activities, like you can take up baking, like cooking, whatever you want to do. But I think the important thing that we need to do is just to stay positive, because it's the same for us. We've been out of work. I am lucky that I teach English, and so I've been able to do some lessons via online. But I lost a lot of my lessons because most of my lessons were kids. So my husband hasn't worked in a month, 2 months, month and a half. Can't remember. I understand the financial difficulties, and we weren't the greatest economy before this happened, and now this is really hurting us. Our way, the culture here, and street markets, and it's just different, and then none of this has been able to happen. So I understand that fear of no money coming in, and the financial hit we're all going to take. and just like everybody else, we're hoping to get a financial assistance, and I understand that, but I think the best that we can do is just to try to stay positive and think about the good things that we can take away from this, and also just to really use social media as a way to stay connected with family
Mhm.
and friends, and to be honest with people. I mean, it's okay if you're depressed over this. It's okay if your anxiety is through the roof, because you're not alone, and it's very understandable. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think this is a good time for you to reach out to people that could be your support system.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't see them face to face, but you can see them through a computer, and we just have to do the best that we can to um, support each other.
That's the
But
way it is for
I
now.
can't. Yeah, I mean, it's a new world. Who knows what? I mean, this has changed so much for us. The way that we live our life now, but it's going to be just as hard and different when we go back too. And just when they lift this lockdown, it doesn't just mean that everything's going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
We have to be prepared that we're all going to have to change a bit, and that things are going to be bad, not just right now, but for the foreseeable future. But I think that, when the gates open back up and we're allowed to go back to work and stuff, buy local, support your local people, try to support those that are not able to start work right away, and just be a community and build each other up. And
There's a lot
I,
of like what I think is what's really cool is a lot of like schools and companies and stuff are offering a lot of their programs and stuff that they normally charge for like online learning and stuff for free. Um, there's libraries that now allow you to like just go on and get check out digital books for free. You don't have to pay like any kind of library fees or anything like that. I mean, this is a great time. This is a great time to sit down in front of YouTube University and learn some like new skills, because I I'm going to San Diego State University, and almost everything I've learned there, probably everything I've learned there, I can learn off YouTube for free. Just because I'm in the journalism field and advertising field, because it's just one of those things, and it's people ought to like maybe take up drawing or something. Go on YouTube and look, hey, how to draw, and just spend the next couple weeks learning how to draw birds or something. Like do something positive with it. I think what this is going to do is show how many people are actually not really necessarily required to go into work. Like people are going to be like, why do I go to work? I'm doing everything I normally do, but I'm doing it from home now. What is the point of me going to work? And I think it's also going to increase the amount of people that go to college online, because it's going to, all the schools are getting a lesson in online learning right now. I have to say that San Diego State, I'm not very impressed with the. I mean, it's not necessarily their fault they were thrown into this, but I have like one professor that puts out an actual video of like a lecture. One person sends like PowerPoint with notes in the PowerPoint notes, and then one person just sends an email. They're like, "Here's your lesson. Here's what I would have talked about in class today. Your paper's due on Friday," kind of deal. And it's just like, man, this sucks. I would be super upset if I was paying for college. Like if the GI Bill wasn't paying for college for me, like if I was paying for this, I'd be like, I want some kind of refund, because I'm not getting the experience. We're not using the facilities, because universities are expensive and people
wow,
expect
I'm
us.
surprised they're not doing sites. Like, how are they not teaching via some sort of platform? I'm surprised they can get away with just sending an email.
Um, some classes and some schools are doing Zoom classes. They'll get on Zoom. Zoom, I don't know if they're a publicly traded company, but if they are, I wish I would have bought in right before all this happened. Um,
Oh,
I mean, people that have never heard of Zoom are all like, yeah, we do Zoom conferencing now. We do this. Um, some classes are, but my classes don't necessarily. I'm in all writing classes. All my classes are writing or like basics of advertising stuff. So it's not technical. If I was in, man, I couldn't imagine being a STEM major, trying to learn some kind of advanced mathematics from home online, like how horrible would that
yeah.
be? Oh, yes.
I,
Oh,
but
go
you're
ahead.
right though. I work for two different schools, and my one school, I before this, I didn't do online class teaching, and it's funny because I was talking to one of my bosses the other day, and she was saying that she thinks that this is going to change a lot, and that she's actually reformatting a lot of the lessons at our school to be online because we don't know when this is going to end. Our numbers have started to drop, but we're by no means in the clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't know, but I mean, I think as of now, the date that we've been given is the end of May. So you have to realize from a school point of view, that's the school year.
That's the entire semester,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, so by the time we're finished with our lockdown, school for this year would be finished. And then who's to say? It could be June, it could be July, we don't know. And so she's like, well, just to be prepared, I'm reformatting so that part of our lessons will be online. And my other school that I teach for, they're based out of Rome. So I do all freelance work for them. I go to places, and all the business classes that we're doing now are going to be switched to half online. Well, right now it's all online, but it will be switched to a half online, half face to face in general.
Yeah.
So you're right. This situation that we're in is going to definitely change our future. It's going to change how people think and go about things. You
Yeah.
know, some people are really enjoying being locked inside. You're right. You catch up on your reading, you catch up on the things
Yeah.
you needed to do. I've cleaned every crevice in my house.
Mine
you
is more of
know?
a mess. Mine, I've turned my
Yeah.
living room into a studio. Like I've got studio lighting in here now, and I've got cameras and stuff. Like I've turned it into a studio for podcasting. So mine is not as clean as it should be, but that is what it is. There's wires everywhere. Um, but it's given me something to do. It's given me, um, I don't know, an outlet to talk to different people in different situations and stuff like that, and everyone's kind of on the same like, man, just like let's see how this goes, like no one knows. And I think the biggest fear that a lot of the professionals have is what's going to happen in the fall. Like everyone's expecting in the summer it's going to drop, which it naturally does because of the heat kind of kills out the virus and stuff like that. But the resurgence of the virus in the fall, I would not be surprised if I found out this summer that they're going to just go ahead and lean into making my classes in the fall online as well. Just because I think it's going to come back. I don't know if it'll come back as strong. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll be worse. But that's how like the Spanish flu that everyone talks about. It came. Everyone got sick. It went away for the summer, and then the fall came, and that's when it really. I think it killed like 115,000 people or something that fall. So until I don't know, until the fall comes and we see how that's going to be, it's just going to be a weird world. I can't imagine sports, people playing sports or any kind of public gatherings all the way, into the fall or winter time frame, unless we get into that time frame and somehow this has been eradicated. But right now there's no vaccine. There's, nothing you can do but wash your hands and I don't know, not interact with other people. So I don't know. What's been the craziest thing that you've seen? Like, what surprised you the most about this whole thing in Italy? Like in Italy, like the virus came through, the healthcare, obviously was overwhelmed. What like negative affected? Man, it's 6:05 in the morning here. My alarms are all going off. I have to reset these. Sorry, even when I have everything turned off, it still goes off. Sorry. So, what do you think's like one of the like I don't know, maybe not craziest. What's something that you would want people in the U.S. to know about if they don't already know about it? Like if we're not tracking the news in Italy or in Europe, I don't know. What's something that you think we should be aware of?
um, well, I mean, I think as far as the health side of things go, obviously, the more you wash your hands, the better. Don't touch your face. Um, I think the key thing is for me is to just be very aware of those around you that are very vulnerable. I don't, like you mentioned before, I'm not really sure that your lockdown will be as extreme as ours, even though I think it's needed. You are a much bigger country, and I just don't know that you're going to get to that point where you'll be as extreme on the lockdown as we are. So, with that being said, I think it's really important that you realize exactly how serious it can get to. As I pointed out, what happens when you're in the hospital and you have it. But also, like one thing I was saying to family members is that, my aunt has like one lung, if that even. I mean, she's got a really bad condition. And I was telling my mom, my mom works in the school system. She doesn't go to work, but my stepdad does. And so I
Mm-hmm.
told my mom, it's really important that you leave the groceries outside her door. She does not need to come in contact with you, not because just because you're at home on lockdown. You still have a family member in your house that's not. I think the thing I would say to you guys is that you're right. There are a lot of people that, I don't even know anybody that has it. But that's just today, you don't. We
Yeah.
didn't know anybody for 3 weeks of being locked down. And then immediately, boom, my husband, then immediately his aunt, and then our friend's mom. I mean, like it happened so fast. If I would say anything to you guys is that I'm not saying panic, but just be aware and know that it can one day can be okay and the next day it cannot. So if you or somebody in your home is still working, then you need to make sure that you're not coming in contact with anybody that is vulnerable, and you need to make sure that you take the precautions to keep it away from your family as well, in your own household. Keep your shoes outside, wash your hands immediately when you come in before you touch anything. um, the virus can stay on your shoes, on your clothes for a period of time. It's not just sneezing and coughing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've
I
heard of
mean,
people. I've heard of people that come home. They bring their groceries home, like they wear gloves, and when they come home, they take the groceries out of the bag and like sanitize each grocery item, and then like throw everything away. Like it's a very like methodical process. Like I don't know if that's too extreme. Like I look at that, like really, and then I'm like, wait, should I be doing that? Like I'm sitting here like, what this has definitely done has made me hyper aware of what I do and touch with my hands. I touch my face all the time because I have a beard, so I'm constantly like, I get all these weird hairs sticking out everywhere, so I'm always trying to rub them down, and I'm always like, when's the last time I washed my hands? Did I touch? Did I go? Like, did I? Who else has touched that doorknob? And or you're at the grocery store and you hear someone clear their throat, and you're like, what? Like, fucking zombie, get away from me? Like. It's just
I
it's
was on the
weird.
train talking to my mom when it very first hit here. I was on the train going to work. This is before our real lockdown started, and people were just starting to wear the mask. And I was on the train, and I was talking to my mom, and I swallowed down the wrong tube. And when you do that, you cough. The lady next to me gave me the look of death. She would have stabbed me if she could. And
Yeah.
she immediately, when the bus stopped, she got off and she looked back at me with this look of like, I will kill you. And it was really intense. And that's when I really realized, I was laughing about it to my mom, but in reality, I stopped laughing and I said, but no, seriously, I guess, people are really, really scared of this. I mean, it was very, very obvious that
Mm-hmm.
I was not sick. I was laughing and then I coughed, but I was speaking in English, so odds are that lady couldn't understand what I was saying, and if she wasn't paying attention to my gestures, maybe she really, honestly, truly thought I was sick. I don't know, but um, it definitely makes you more aware of touching your face. And I mean, originally people were like, "Oh, the mask. I don't understand the mask. That's so stupid. It's not airborne." Then someone made the point that made a lot of sense to me, is that you don't realize how much you touch your face, and that
Mm-hmm.
wearing the mask isn't necessarily keeping you. It's not saying that you are worried about it airborne. It's keeping you from touching your face. As for the groceries, I do not do that. I don't sanitize everything. However, here you can't go into the grocery store without gloves. So when
Mm,
you show up to the supermarket anywhere that lets you in to shop, they hand you a pair of plastic gloves. So I guess
mm.
maybe that's why I haven't gone to that extreme because everyone that goes in is wearing gloves and there's really no, even that doesn't protect you completely. If you don't know how to take your gloves off appropriately, then the whole point of you wearing them was just defeated. If you are wearing your gloves but you touch your face anyways, defeats it. So, I mean, it's not 100% going to keep you safe, but
Well, here
I
here
mean,
in the U.S., there was a big like, oh, should we be wearing masks? We shouldn't be wearing masks. The government was saying, don't wear masks. You don't need them. And I think people like don't understand what they were trying to do. There was a couple things going on. One, they were telling people you don't need a mask because you're not in a high risk category. It's not. It's not at that point. It had not spread so much that there's so many people that have it. So wearing the mask is not really going to do you any good because the odds of you getting it right now are pretty slim anyway. You're just wasting mask. And two, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to save the mask for the medical community. Like, hey, you don't need the mask. Let's give it to the people that are actually going to need it. And now because it's becoming worse here, they've backed off of that because now they see that it's like community, the community spread is happening and now people actually do have it. So now they're like, okay, now you should be wearing masks. I think San Diego County is going to start recommending. They're not going to like enforce it with fines or anything, but they're recommending now. I think it came out this morning that for people to wear some sort of face mask or face cloth over their face when they're out in public. I don't have any masks, so I guess I'm not going to do that. But I don't really go out a lot. I go to the grocery store, and then occasionally I'll go over to Starbucks and get a coffee from the drive-through. That's about what I do from my day to day. And what you were saying about keeping people separate from people working, I have my kid here all the time now. Normally I split him with my ex, but she's still working and she works in the medical field, but not on that side. But she does work with people that work at the hospital. So he's been staying here the entire time, and it's been interesting because he's also school is all online now and stuff like that. So I got to make him do his homework. I'm doing my homework. We're like a couple nerds over here. Well, I did want to ask you though. You said Marco got it, or you think he got it. It wasn't confirmed, but it was most likely got it. When he got it, how did you guys like self quarantine? Did you guys go to the grocery store after that, or did someone bring stuff to you? Like, how did you get things that you needed?
um, no, so when he got a severe fever for like 4 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like day two, we realized it wasn't coming down. And so that's when we called the number because every city, you should have a number. If you think that you have it, you're supposed to call a number. And then, so we did, and we got through. And at that time is when you say your symptoms and they'll tell you whether you need to stay here or go to the hospital. They did recommend that he go to the hospital to check out his chest because his chest was a bit not great. It wasn't congested, but we decided against it. Regardless, though, from that moment on, we were quarantined in our home. What we did inside our home was in the room I'm in right now, actually, is kind of like our dining room. It's a separate room with a door, but we have a couch that folds out into a bed. So he immediately moved into this room, and it was kind of his space,
Mm.
and changed the sheets all the time, and just took care of him like a normal sick person. As far as grocery trash, because we took our trash down. Um, we live in like an apartment building, so
Mm-hmm.
all downstairs. As far as anything that involved outside, we are very blessed to live in a building with actually a few relatives.
Mm.
Um, this is Marco's family home, so he's lived here since like 1993, and so the neighbor is actually his best friend. So
Oh.
he went to the pharmacy for us, and what they do is they just leave it outside our door, ring the bell, and then they'll walk away, and then we open the door. Um, it is not. mandatory to wear a mask or gloves here. Most people just, well, no, a lot of people are wearing masks, but like you said, we really didn't. We want to make sure that the hospitals have it. A lot of so what I do is put a scarf over my face. So with that being said, as far as when you're outside, like you're only allowed to go to those places that I mentioned before, or you do get fined. If you are quarantined and you're caught outside, you could go to prison. So since we were quarantined, we respect that, but we also respect the fact that we didn't want to give it to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
When you know you have it, or pretty much have it, it would be really selfish of you to go outside. It's one thing if you think you're healthy, you have no symptoms, and you go outside and you do have it and you give it to someone, but you don't know. I mean, that's an accident. But when you have it, you have to be extra careful. So we were just very blessed to have people that helped us out. And as of yesterday, we're off of it. So I was able to go outside today.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I got to go to the pharmacy, and I know that doesn't seem exciting, but when you're locked in your house,
Yeah.
any any reason to go outside is amazing.
This reminds me of being on ship. I'm like, have I gone outside today? I'm like, have I seen the
Yeah,
sun? I should step outside and get some sun. Like that's the. I don't
yeah,
know. That's good. You have community though, and I think that's something that's going to increase for everybody. They're gonna realize who's inside of their circle. Their circle of trust or whatever you want to call it. Their own little community, and it's gonna grow stronger bonds. And I think people are seeing how much they rely on other people, especially if they're directly affected, like you guys were. God, man, that must have been so scary. Like when he was sick. Oh my God, I can't imagine. That'd be crazy.
scary. It's scary. It was scary for him. It really upset him. I mean, and he's, we're young. We're not even 40 yet, and we're healthy. So I didn't let my mind go there,
Yeah,
because we watch the news diligently, and he's a healthy guy, he's never sick. So I was concerned about him getting better, but I wasn't concerned that it was going to go to the extreme, to be honest. I had to stay positive. But I will say, for those of you that have children, it's this transition for everybody. Lockdown, no school. It's a difficult transition. But when you have a toddler that already doesn't understand why you can't go to the park,
mm,
already doesn't understand why she doesn't see her friends at school because she's in a zero, which is like a daycare preschool. And then all of a sudden she can't hold Papa and kiss him. It really, it's mentally really tough, and it's hard to, there's already so many things going through your head, and there's always already so much stress, and then when you have to try to explain it the best you can to a 2-year-old, it's tough,
yeah, I'm sure.
but
Well, I'm glad you. I mean, you guys took it seriously though, and you did what you're supposed to do. You keep hearing these stories about, like yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I heard the story. A guy, his wife was going into labor. He had coronavirus. He knew he had it, and went anyway to the hospital to see her give birth. Ended up giving it to his wife. Like all this stuff happened. Multiple people have been infected now because he decided to go knowingly to the hospital, knowingly with coronavirus, and not telling anybody about it. And he infected a bunch of people. And then there was when this whole thing kind of started off, like one of the first news stories, there was a guy that had tested positive and then got on the plane anyway to fly from New York to Florida. It was like a JetBlue plane. And his wife was telling the people they were sitting around, like, yeah, he's positive, like telling people about it. And they're like, why are you on the plane? Like, why are you flying? And JetBlue actually banned him for life from ever flying with them again because of it. And then there was another one where this lady was going around and coughing on stuff at the grocery store. And they said she coughed on like $35,000 worth of food and stuff like that, just to be a bitch, I guess. I don't know. And then there's a guy that tried to derail a train yesterday or 2 days ago. The USNS Mercy is the one. I think that's the one that's here in Los Angeles, the medical ship. Some dude had got onto some kind of online conspiracy theory that this was a ploy for a government takeover, and he took a train and tried to derail it and hit the ship with the train. Like, this actually happened in Los Angeles, so you can look that up. But like, people are insane.
Wow. The plane story, I mean, I'm sorry, but to knowingly put hundreds of people on that plane in a constricted, no fresh air situation, I mean, to only be kicked off JetBlue for the rest of your life, that doesn't seem...
He may have gotten charged as well. He may have gotten charged. I'm sure he did.
More like, that, to me, that is... And you don't know who's on that plane. I mean, we are so lucky that this is not deadly to children. I mean, gosh, as a mom, as a parent, I'm sure you can relate to this, but I think this all would be so much worse if our children were in that range of people that are the most susceptible to it, because I just don't know what I would do. I think I would be that crazy maniac that would be like, I think I'd be a different person if my child was at risk. And so, but to think about, young kids that have anybody that could have been on that plane, the elderly, people that are young but have breathing problems. I mean, the whole conception that you have to be an old person to be to be at risk is ridiculous to me. There's so many people that can be at risk, and it goes just to show that even healthy people that are young can get it. I mean, we're proof here.
Yeah.
To get on a plane knowing you have it. The guy with the wife, I mean, man, that's to give birth, I don't understand.
I would totally miss that. That is, I mean, the selfishness of humans is just disgusting. That's what it comes down to.
It's more understandable with the wife that's having the baby, but I still don't think he should have went. But it's more reasonable, I guess you could say. But the guy on the airplane, man, his ass needs to be sitting in jail for a long time. I mean, you put so many people at risk knowingly. That's the crazy thing. Like, who does that?
Scumbags.
I don't know, what's the coughing lady?
Really...
Did she have a virus, or was she just coughing to make a point?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I feel bad for the people that are on cruise ships right now, because the Coast Guard has said every cruise ship that's at sea, they're not allowed to dock in the U.S. They're not allowed to pull in. So if they're at sea right now, they can't come into the U.S. They have to stay at sea or go somewhere else,
This has been going on for a month, like for you guys, weeks now. Who gets on a cruise right now?
I don't know. People are still flying. Look up. You want to see something crazy? Look up the flight tracker. Like Google flight track, whatever, plane tracker, and look at how many planes are in the air right now. There's a shit ton of planes in the air. A lot of them don't have but one or two people on them, but they're still flying them because, one, they're, I guess it's good for the pilots and stuff. It's still getting their income. But two, air travel hasn't been banned. And people still need to travel for work and for essential purposes. So they haven't stopped it. And, it's kind of one of those things, like you see someone post himself on a plane, like, look, I'm the only one on the plane. And I see it and I'm like, you're kind of an asshole. Like, unless I knew you're flying, to go do something, like I'm a medical person. I'm going to fly here to help out in New York City. Got it. That makes sense. But I'm flying because it's cheap right now. By the way, I could fly to Indiana and back right now for $85. So it's super cheap right now. But, you're kind of a dick if you do that. And like you said, the recirculated air, I mean, it's the same on cruise ships. It's all recirculated air, and that's why people get sick. And that's why I don't necessarily think that leaving the cruise ships at sea is the right thing to do. I think they should let the passengers deboard, but they should keep them in quarantine. Because at least then you're separating them, and they're not breathing in recirculated air and stuff like that, and it's going to lessen the amount of people that are infected. Now, obviously, that comes with its own logistical challenges and stuff. I don't know how feasible that is. And the other thing too is that a lot of the cruise ships aren't flagged in the U.S. And it's one of those hey man, you operate in the U.S. but you flagged yourself under another country for a tax break, so that's your fault, not mine, kind of deal. And I think that's part of the reason they're not getting any kind of stimulus money, so from the government because of that, because of how they flag their ships under different countries to save on taxes and stuff. But you'd mentioned, well, actually, first, what's your timeline? I know you have something else going on, so I don't want to go over.
I have about 15 more minutes.
Okay. So then we'll start to wrap up. I guess there was one other thing I was going to ask you, but now I don't remember. What's been the most common question you've gotten from people here in the States?
On a daily basis, I get, is what we're seeing on the news true?
Yeah.
Daily basis. Yeah.
It's true, but it's the worst thing that they could find. They're like, this is the worst thing that we can find today. Show it, you know?
And then I get a lot of my friends that are parents, I get, so how has it been being locked inside all day with the toddler? I think I can say I've been in contact now with my friends that I haven't seen or talked to in so long, but we're like parents now, and we're all banding together, like posting activities and, oh, this happened, how'd you get through this? And so I have to personally say that on a positive note, the band community together,
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of people asking, well, what do you do this? How do you guys go to the grocery store? What are things I should get that maybe I might not think about? You know, these are a lot of the questions that I get.
What are the staples that you keep in your cabinet?
Beans and pasta, because we're in Italy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, food-wise, we do a lot of beans, pasta. But, like I said, we can go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
The difference is that you wait in line quite a while for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go, like sometimes you go for like every other week normally is when you get your big portion of stuff. It's just now every time we go, we really make sure we have everything on our list that we need and we get put in a portion. So, but I mean, the staples that we always have, well, we also drink bottled water here. Every household buys the large 1.5-liter bottle 6-pack. So I don't know if it's common throughout all of Italy because I haven't been to the south, but every place I've been in the north, we don't drink from the tap. So one huge staple for us is water.
Why do you not drink from the taps?
I mean,
can you drink from it? Is it potable?
Yeah, I don't know.
You grew up on well water.
I know, exactly. So I personally don't think our water here is bad, but my husband would just die if he
stinky ass well water. Ugh.
I know. I drink it now and I'm like, oh, this is awful. How did I drink this for so long? But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. So we don't drink from the tap here, and so water, pasta, beans, all things.
Do you guys do a lot of canned goods? I know you guys do a lot more fresh foods over there, so not as much canned goods.
Beans, corn.
So just vegetables, not like you don't have like your soups and stuff like we have here, like stews and everything you can get.
No, we do have the bags of soup where the powder,
like the soup mix. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't really. And then some of the tomatoes, because we do have the endless variety of tomatoes that you can get canned, chopped, stewed, whatever. But no, in the aspect of food, it seems that's a major difference here. We don't really have. We do have frozen food. We have frozen vegetables. We have frozen like French fries. We do have these kinds of things, but the expiration date is way shorter than the processed food from America. And we have frozen pizzas and stuff too, but again, you have to really be careful because the dates are much shorter because we don't have the preservatives and the stuff. But majority of our food is fresh vegetables, fresh fruit.
That's got to make it a lot harder because, like, for me, I go to the grocery store and I normally keep some food on hand in case, because I mean, I'm in earthquake country and stuff. You know, you never know what, or fire country. You never know what's going to happen around California. So I always keep a little bit of stuff, and I have like a box of MREs, the military food, as well. But now when I go to the grocery store, I normally buy like 3 or 4 cans of, like, you know, like a thick soup in case, just to throw in the cabinet in case we do go into like a really extreme lockdown and then I can't go to the grocery store, or for whatever reason they don't have what I want. At least now I have at least 2 weeks worth of food. So, you know, that's kind of been my game plan. Canned food is like my emergency food, you know. And I don't know. I told my kid, I told Kels, you know, if it gets super crazy, we'll just go out to the desert, man. I was like, I'll grab all our camping stuff and we'll just go out to the desert and go camp for a couple days, like get away from everybody, you know, like no reason to risk it out here. But I don't know.
I was living in New York when Sandy happened, and so I think living through that experience, because again, same thing, nobody took it seriously, but I did, because I was like, well, this is really going to happen. And I was panicking. And so it kind of taught me to do the same. I mean, I'm not buying canned soup, but we have, at any given time, we have red beans, cannoli beans, black beans, corn, um, uh, uh, lentils. Sorry, I forgot it in English there for a second. Oh my gosh, that's so strange. Um,
That has got to be a weird feeling, huh?
I know it's so strange because I'm not even fluent yet in Italian, but there's just like certain things that I haven't said the English word in 3 years, so I forget what it is.
Yeah. I
Um,
didn't know you were in New York for Sandy.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
think people like us are prepared for things like this better because we spent winters locked in, you know, in Indiana with feet of snow outside where you can't. And you
True.
were, I was more in town than you were. I was like on the edge of town. You were like way out there. So if you guys got snowed in, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone off the road driving out by where you live before, skid off the road because you can't even see the road because it's just so covered in snow and stuff like that. And it's just all cornfields and then a road, all down cornfields and then a road, so you can't even hardly tell the difference sometimes. So I think
Oh, we could
people,
open our front door sometimes because, like I said, like in front of our house is a cornfield,
yeah.
oh, and nothing to block it. Our house would be the first building to block it. So there'd be times we'd try to go outside, and or we'd open the blind and it'd just be snow.
Snow
It was
drifts up on
crazy.
the house.
Yeah, but my dad was a hunter, so as you know, so I mean, we had huge coolers, freezers full of deer meat at all times. We didn't really buy meat from the grocery store very often. Maybe um, chicken or something, but
Mm-hmm.
not beef, anything like that. We used deer meat instead of beef all growing up. I really never even started eating beef that until I was older, except for like when my mom made hamburger helper. Ugh. Um,
I don't even know the last time I
but
had hamburger helper. Jeez.
2 years ago, Marco came home back to Indiana with me, and I was pregnant, and I remember I was going to have some Kraft mac and cheese, and he took the box out of my hand. He's like, absolutely not.
What the hell is this? That's like blasphemy.
I know. He's like, that's
Oh, I think I lost you.
the box food is not a thing. It's not
Uh,
allowed.
yeah. All right. Well, I don't want to make you rush for you're getting ready to teach a lesson. Is that what you're doing? That's
Yeah.
exciting. That's pretty cool that you're teaching English online. Is there any kind of requirements you have to do that? Did you have to get a teaching certification or anything for that?
To teach online.
Yeah.
Um, well, no, I'm about to start teaching for children in China, and I do have to get a TESOL online certification for that. But
Hmm.
here, no. I mean, I've been teaching English here for 3 years, so and also these aren't students that I signed up to do online. These are my students that I used to either go to their house or go. They would come into the school,
Oh,
and
okay.
on lockdown now we do it via Zoom or Skype. Um, But like I said, my boss said that moving forward, we may continue to do online lessons. So I personally have been in my free time trying to sign up for some online courses that help me to be a better teacher
Mm.
online. Because this is a challenge for me. I'm not very computer savvy.
Yeah.
I want to be better at it, especially if this is going to be the new thing. You know, we don't. I want to be prepared for what this situation now is going to mean for us in the long run. But
Yeah.
legally, not here, not in Europe, you don't need a certification to teach online.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, well, I will let you go then. Thanks for doing the interview, and I'm sure people are going to enjoy it. And I guess if there's any follow-on questions, maybe I'll have you come back on later on if people enjoy the show.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. Love you guys, and be careful out there. Stay safe, all right?
Thanks. Love you guys too.
Bye.
Bye.